Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. Today's guest is John and Sara Gaughan. They are the co-founders of Finlay James. John's been on the podcast a few times now. This is his third time. The first time we discussed his growth plans for America. We talked abstractly about remote working and could that be something that will happen in the future. Little did we know, here we are, the tail end of 2020 when it's the norm. And then I had him on again as a voice of reason in the early days of COVID. And one of the things he said stuck with me, and he was like, look, you need to box really clever in this moment. You need to cut your costs, you need to improve your efficiencies, but you need to work out which of your clients is actually going to pay. So that's vacancy management. And he said, if you steer into that, like we're going to steer into that, you'll be okay. He was pretty forthright about that, and he was right. And they've done all right. They're on the other side of this. We talked about that today. Talked about some of the lessons learned, and his lovely wife was on too, talking about how they make joint decisions, which was really interesting. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Two inspirational leaders in our industry, run a great 50-man business, and a people first business, as they call it. So over to John and Sara. All right. Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. I'm joined by the dynamic duo today. The boss lady, Sara Gaughan, and her husband, John. How are you today?
We're good.
Good, thank you. In the rainy Manchester, typical weather.
What's that lovely backdrop that I see there?
Yeah, you've got you've got Manchester, you've actually got San Francisco, and you've got London. So it was actually done by a little plug for our friend actually, Dave Draws, who's the boyfriend of one of our consultants.
Okay.
Who does them? I think he's done them all over the world. He's been out to New York. He's been doing them over there. He's done them in the UK. So yeah, he's done okay.
Last time we spoke was pretty dark. More on my side than your side. You stood there, you puffed your chest, you said, I've been here before. This is what I'm going to do. Did you do it? How did it work out?
Yeah, I think pretty much actually. There's not that much has happened since March and April that we didn't envisage and we didn't kind of plan for. I mean, furlough was a new thing, so obviously that wasn't around in the last recession, and that that helped us, and I think it helped a lot of people in the early days and the mid-level days. But one of the kind of things we suggested at the time when we last spoke, Dalta, was we wanted to fill the roles that we still had, so we didn't run around chasing business. In the latter days of March and early April and May. We went from over 250 vacancies to less than 50, but our philosophy was let's place these 50 and let's kind of live to fight another way. So we actually went super defensive actually. So my mentor actually works within the defense industry. He's a senior guy for a big defense company, and he basically said, look, where everybody else will leave their kind of their warriors on the table, he said it's time to kind of retrench and basically stay put and get your cost base down and live to fight another day, and that's what we did. So we went from 50 people, we had maybe 34, 35 of them on furlough during April, May, and June. And the guys that we had over in New York and San Francisco, they cracked on. We had a few people in Manchester, a few people in London. I carried on working. James May, our MD, managed to carry on working. And we basically just looked at a number we could do with a much smaller workforce. And what we found is we became more productive per person. We became more efficient in terms of the work we were doing, and we managed to, I suppose, do our revised target from April through to September with a much smaller workforce. You know, the targets came down, the cost base came down, but we did what we anticipated we could do. And, you know, we lived to fight another day, which was bringing everybody back in August. And we're now seeing the results come through. And, you know, we've seen a good uplift this month, you know, October against September. November, we think, could be very, very strong. And what we've done is we've got our act in order in many respects. So we've cut the overhead, probably by about £100,000 a month. Wow. We've managed to become more efficient, and we've cut out a lot of waste. You know, we probably had too many vacancies back in March, and we were trying to basically do too much. Whereas now our philosophy is, you know, get good clients on board who are committed, who've got a robust process, who want to hire, and just concentrate on that. So I think a lot of the stuff we aim to do, you know, we tried not to let too many people go. However, we did a bunch of kind of town hall meetings early, and we said, look, not everybody will get through this, because not everybody wants to be a recruiter in the latter half of 2020. So we've had people go back into teaching. We've had people leave who are going to maybe go back to university. We've had some people who just couldn't basically get to the pace of what we now need to do when they came back in August and September.
And Sarah, during this time you volunteered at the start, is that right?
I did. I was the first person to put my name down on the furlough list. You know, obviously my job's more of the people side of things. So to me, it was the natural thing for me to look after those people that were going to be on furlough. Now, obviously at the time, we didn't know how long that was going to be for, but with the idea that it might have been quite a while, I said to John, you know, I'll be the first person to volunteer. And then we obviously went to our people and said, who wants to join me? And, you know, some people carried on for a while, and then they realised the market was just so difficult. And they came back to us and said, you know what, I think I do need a bit of time out right now. So, yeah, it was good in the sense that we had a WhatsApp group that I then looked after, and, you know, I could catch in with people, make sure they were doing okay, just keep track of everything, really. Because, you know, I think the difficulty with furlough is, and, you know, you hear this from some other companies, that people just get left and there's no communication. So obviously it's an advantage to me that I live with John, and every time that a deal went through, John would tell me, and I would then tell the group, and everybody would cheer, and that was great. But, you know, we were quite honest about bad news as well, and it was just to keep that whole conversation going was really, really important.
And you were volunteering for the NHS at the time, is that right?
Do you know what? I did volunteer for the NHS, and I never ever heard anything back from them.
Oh, really?
Really sadly, yeah. The only message I got back was that they had been oversubscribed with volunteers and will be in touch, and they never came back to me.
Oh, wow. So when you're on the other side of this, what's like when you looked at your business before? You mentioned you've dropped 100 grand. I'm guessing a large part of that is some office space. What other big changes has COVID made to your business when you look at it from maybe a structure perspective?
I think what we've looked at is I think commission schemes. You know, we had a commission scheme that was too lucrative for billing consultants. And so what we found was, like, even this time last year, we might have been looking at a, you know, 320, 330K a month overhead. But so long as you're doing more than that, you don't kind of care that much, and you don't really notice. And, you know, if you're giving out 5-10 grand commission checks, you know, it's all great fun and everybody's kind of doing okay. And, you know, some of them better than yourself. And it was only when we really looked at it and we thought, you know, when the billings had gone down because we had people on furlough and the cost base was still relatively high, we realized that we needed a better yield out of each consultant and each person. And so we've looked at things like, the Billing Management Commission, and basically said, look, in, these COVID times, one, we need you to bill. So that's going to produce, a chunk of your commission, but we need you to manage well. And so you're not going to get a percentage of everything your people do. You're going to get a percentage of what they do that gives the business some profit. So I think, we probably had a situation where some of our people were earning too much money for mediocre performance. And so we've had to have the chat and just say, right, you've had it pretty good. Now it's time to step up and bill and produce. And, if you're up for that, great, let's go. If you're not, that's fine too.
How do you manage that from an emotional standpoint, Sarah, when you're kind of dealing with the other side of it?
You know what? I think our billing managers have kind of understood. They know that at the end of the day we're a people first company, but as John said, there is a limit with that. We'll be good to them, but they need to maybe reciprocate. And I do think that's something that's really come out of this, that we have tried to lead from the front, but we have obviously made sacrifices. And I think the team are really, really, really aware of that. We've not had any issues in having to explain that to them. Yeah.
But I think we, Delta, have that kind of leaders eat last kind of philosophy. And so, a lot of companies have had, pay cuts. A lot of companies have, not paid bonuses. And we've basically, we've managed to get to this point with no pay cuts and paying every last pound of bonus and commission that people have been due. And, we're proud of that. But, we've had 3 months whereby, we've not been taking any cash. And we think people...
I know how that feels.
Yeah, and but I think what you realise is that the people who are still with you out the other side of this get it. The people who are not, whether it's in your business, my business, and all the other businesses out there, are the ones who, they were fine when the going was good, and then it's kind of, jump off the boat. So I feel, and I think Sarah feels, really happy going into our new financial year where we're at 40 people, but we've got 40 people who want to be here and who want to roll the sleeves up and get stuck in. And some of the people who weren't willing to do that, well, they're not here, and good luck to them, whether they do it in recruitment or elsewhere. But, we could only eat last for so long, or we'll starve. And if we starve, that's no good to anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at your strategic plan for next year, are you thinking that, do you want to be like a 60-person business that's really lean, or do you want to do the traditional, I'm just going to grow like crazy and we'll see? Has this changed your outlook to the type of business you want to run?
Definitely. And what we've looked at is, because it was end of year and then, October's kind of a new kind of start point. What's interesting this year is, even though we're kind of battling on through these COVID times, and it's still a challenge and it's still a struggle, I think we feel more relaxed and a bit more in control now than at any point in the last 4 years.
Really?
So 4 years ago, we had just done the management buyout. That cost us some money, and we were opening up in London. 3 years ago, we were opening up in San Francisco. 2 years ago, we were going kind of big style on London. And then last year, we were basically trying to go at the technical market and add that string to our bow. Now, this is the first year where we're saying, look, let's grow Chicago, and let's look to get a good, strong yield on every person we've got, and let's grow the people that bit better. And, recruitment and increasing in that size and volume, that's not such a biggie this year. If we get Chicago up to 5 or 6 people, Gareth Fox over in Chicago, he'll be happy with that, and we'll be happy with that. But we don't need any more people in Manchester at the moment. And, we're looking to grow London. That needs a little bit of more headroom, but that's it. If we're at a 50-person headcount this time next year, but everybody's kind of done a number and they're still here, we'll be delighted with that.
And I think that, from a people's perspective, the bigger you grow, the more people you have, the more issues potentially you can have.
Sure.
Especially with the demographic that we have, and most companies have young entry-level people bring with it certain problems sometimes. And our head of people, Linda, has spent many years where she's just firefighting things all the time, and this is the first time I think where we've been able to do this. That's you, John.
Am I going to have a Roy Keane moment here?
Yeah. Sorry about that. But what's interesting is, one of the things I talked about when we last spoke, and then I talked early on in COVID, was that what I see happening, whether it's in our company and across all companies, is I think it's a great level playing field now for all the junior and inexperienced recruiters coming in. So we're seeing a lot of our newbies absolutely fly because they don't know any better.
Yeah.
They joined the business in, let's say, March, and working in COVID and recruiting in COVID is just all they know. So I think it's actually more difficult for the people who've got maybe 5, 10, 15 years who are seeing some of these kids run past them, and can they speed up, and can they raise their game, and can they kind of work at the pace that some of the other people are doing. So I think that's a challenge.
And we found that with furlough as well, didn't we? Because I know myself, I was obviously off for quite a few months, and it's hard because you get used to that new world of not being working and using your brain every day. And we had people come back who they just did not know how to do the job anymore. They really struggled, and some of those people chose to leave.
Yeah, it's tough. Hey, we haven't had a break. My wife came in and she just blitzed it for 6 months, and I compare it to like a Ferrari being on a dirt track, and I've had to exit her out now. She's down to 3 days now because she doesn't work like a normal person. So it's a sight to behold watching her in full flow. But she's quit on me 3 times over the years. So when I see the warning signs now, I'm like, hey, like, now's your time to kind of walk out and come back to a few hours here and there. We're pretty strong administration team now, so it's all right. So to get to the point where we're like, oh, we're going to survive, we're going to be around in February, and we'll pay our tax bill. Now I'm like, oh, okay.
But I think what's interesting, Dalton, was right the way through this. I mean, I had a bit of a moment. I think it was about 6 weeks ago. We were up in the Yorkshire Dales, and I rarely go quiet. And we went on a couple of mile walk, and I had like my hood up, didn't say a word, and Sarah was kind of like, "What's up?" And it was like, it dawned on me that we were like week 1 September, and we had £250,000 overhead to do in October, and we didn't have any offers accepted. And it was like, right, okay, this is real tough because everybody was back. The headcount was back up to a decent number after furlough, but it takes time, as you know, for the deals to come through, and the decisions turn into offers accepted, turns into like invoices out the door. So where we were 4 or 5 weeks ago, in some respects, was a more difficult time than in April and May, with a tiny overhead, well, with a much smaller overhead and nobody to look after. It's only when everybody's come back, and I think there'll be a lot of those challenges for my peers and our peers, whereby it was okay doing it in furlough times. It's now doing it in non-furlough times, or when everybody's back in work. So I think we found it more difficult probably 6 weeks ago than we did for the first 6 months of COVID.
How do you take care of your head?
Me personally, there's a couple of things. So I have got like a relationship with Sarah and the children, who are both at university. They're both 20, where we're super open, honest, transparent, and we won't sugarcoat things, and it will be, look, this is where we're at. And I think what that helps is there's no surprises and there's no kind of negativity. So I think that there's three things I think about really. One is total honesty and openness. And if it's bad, we'll tell the kids it's bad. So they're not kind of worried and well, they can be a little bit worried, but they know we've got it. So they've got, 100% confidence that we were going to come out the other side of this. And, they were right to be confident. Two, I think not drinking. So I've not drank for like over 3 years now. I think that's important to me. So
that West of Ireland blood in you must have liked to drink at some stage.
I think so, yeah. Parents from Mayo, so yeah, most definitely. And I had some kind of some moments that I'd prefer to kind of forget if possible.
You and me both.
Yeah, what I kind of found was that during these COVID times, waking up and attacking each day with positivity is crucial. So even those dark days of 6 weeks ago when you've got no deals, it was right, okay, well, look, I'm in a positive frame of mind. So when the opportunity arises, we're going to close that next deal. And we're going to close the one after that, and we're going to stick to the basics. So I think the three things are, one, not drinking. I think two, total openness and honesty. And three, still having fun. So, we've not kind of argued or fought during COVID. We don't blame each other for any decision that we've made or any kind of mistake that may have happened. So I only have kind of two ways of thinking, which is kind of now and tomorrow. I don't think about the past. I don't think about what we could have done differently. I don't think about, feeling sorry for myself or being unlucky. It's what can we do today and what we're going to do tomorrow.
And Sarah, how do you guys make decisions?
We make decisions together, that's not to say that we'll always agree on everything either. We both put our viewpoint forward and we tend to come up with what we feel is the right solution. We probably debate stuff, but we don't, as John said, we don't really argue about it, do we? I think what it comes from is that we were having this discussion yesterday. We've kind of grown up together. We met very young, we met at 21. And our values have become aligned, and that's really, really important. So we have the same personal values, the same business values as each other, and that really, really helps when we're making decisions. And now that doesn't mean that John's decisions are always the right ones, and I will tell him so quite often.
But even with hiring, Dol, so that we've got Sarah more involved in the hiring now than we used to have, because between myself and James Mayer and we made some mistakes along the way, and we find that involving Sarah, we make less mistakes.
Does that mean that you and James might get a bit excited over somebody, and maybe she comes in with fresh eyes?
I think that, but the other thing is, I'll give you, for me, what's a great example, which is we made 4 offers pre-COVID to people to join our business. Now, I know probably 95% of people who had agreed to hire people. You're in Rep to Rep. You will have known this, and you will have had this happen. Late March. It was forget that. That's kind of a bit of a pipeline buster, but that's not happening. Whereas we went through with every hire, and we're now seeing the benefit of that because we've got people who had no recruitment experience. We had one young lady who was moving from Wales to Manchester, and she was just waiting for the opportunity to move. No recruitment, a little bit of sales. And we know a lot of people would have been that higher, but our values are such that we wouldn't feel comfortable basically not fulfilling our promise. And that's the same with, Jack Wallace, who runs our London office. A lot of people would have been that high, but we thought, no, even if we're not getting a wage in June, we're still going to hire that guy. Even though we might not be getting a wage in July, we're still going to hire that young lady because she's going to be the future of this business. So I think when you grow and develop as two people, I think it's sometimes easier to run a business. And you run a business with your wife. I think if your values are so aligned because you care about the things and you value the same things, it's easier to make decisions. But if I made a decision on a hire or, a fire, and kind of it didn't work out to be maybe the right decision, Sara wouldn't kind of basically say, "Oh, I told you so." So we don't do "I told you so."
I think it comes down to trust ultimately, and the best example of that is that we've lived in our house 18 years now. I put an offer in on that house without it being on the market, and John hadn't even seen it. And I phoned him up and I said, "I've just been to see a house and I've put the asking price in for it." And he said, "Okay," and that's what it comes down to. It's total trust in the other person.
All right. Yeah, I do what I'm told as well, John. So I can relate to that. Okay, guys, that's us today. Thank you so much for coming on. Real inspirational stuff. Lots of takeaways. And yeah, any last thoughts, John, Sara?
I think my last thoughts are, I'm genuinely excited for Finlay James and the industry as we go into 2021. So I think a lot of the conversations I'm having with my peers are, we all seem to have become a little bit more efficient, a little bit more organised, a little bit more disciplined, a little bit better with our costs and our comm plans and things like that. So I think there's a lot of us with more robust businesses going into 2021. And I think there's also some, amazing people who've joined the industry this year that are going to absolutely fire. So if they can do it in these circumstances, in this environment, when things do pick up, whether it's in the UK, Europe, US, wherever, I think that spells good news for everybody. So I'm just very positive that, we've got through kind of 6 to 8 months of this, and we've still got a way to go, and there'll still be some dark days and difficult times, but just being positive and being upbeat and being open and transparent, that you can get out the other side of this.
I think that transparency is the big thing. Don't be afraid to tell your people that you're struggling. We're all in this together, and we couldn't have done this without our team behind us, and it's really important to acknowledge that.
It's interesting. So this is the third time I've interviewed you, John, and the first time we talked about remote work as an abstract format, and that was only, I'm going to say 2 years ago, might be.
Yeah.
And you were kind of thinking, oh, somebody could be in this office and you hadn't fleshed it out quite.
Yeah.
And we almost discussed it in the interview.
Yeah.
And then of course, then we get to the COVID where it's like, we're going into battle, and now you're on this side, now you're being optimistic. So it's interesting following on the journey. So thanks so much for coming in.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to catch up again.
Okay.
Thanks,
See you
John.
soon.